Hey, Coach. Well, I'm so happy you found us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell up above. We put out content just about every day. Also, go down below and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. If you're looking to become a better basketball coach, you're looking for a mentor, if you're looking for resources, teachhoops.com is the answer for you. Go over and check it out and have a great day.
All right, welcome to Coach Unplugged. Coach and I were talking about how many episodes I had before we jumped on. Way too many, and I've been
Oh
married,
no, not enough.
and I'm still married, 2 kids, 25 years. Crazy, but it's like, what does the sign say? I'm happy to interrupt this
We
marriage for basketball season or something.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
I the best part, I haven't said this in a while on a podcast, but the best part was the summer we got married is when I got the job, my first head job. I was always an
Mhm.
assistant, and there's, for any of you that are listening, there's a big difference. That 18 inches is a big on the seat. It's a big difference.
It's huge.
It's huge. No one understands
Yeah.
that shift. That 18 inches, depending how big that butt is a big difference. And she's only known me obsessive head
Sure.
running a program, youth pro, like, so that was a blessing, I think. If she'd have
Is
known
she
me.
into is she into basketball?
She is, but I think there's two avenues you can go down. And I chose she came to all the games. She came early, she came to all the games. She
Hmm.
got too nervous. She couldn't come. My son played for me, so she came obviously when he's playing.
Sure.
But there's either she's gonna be 100% in,
Right.
or I'm going to have a separate life. And we kind of chose, she'll come, she'll support, she'll be the banquet, she'll do all that stuff. But I kind of separated it. And it was
Hmm.
like, I didn't want, like, I wanted to, because I think I was a better dad and a better husband that way. It's like,
Sure.
that's my obsession. Let's do that. And then I can come back here. And then she's got hers. And it's like, that seemed to work better. Again, it's a
Church and state.
balance. Yeah, it's a little bit. It was,
Hmm.
the guy I took it over from, she was like almost an assistant coach. She was there so much. So
Hmm.
I think as a coach, you kind of got to decide which way are you going to throw it. My kids spent more time than they should in the gym and running around,
Oh, no
but
such thing.
oh yeah, it's
No
great.
such thing.
I know
Are
your
you
kids
kidding
are
me?
little.
Yeah, and they'll when the summer comes and my kindergartner gets out of school, they will be in the gym while I'm in the office, right? Like it's
It's
great.
a
I think it's
oh, it's
awesome for them.
unbelievable. I told people, like,
Yeah.
they go, you don't belong to a like a we call it's Princeton Club here, but it's like a workout
Hmm.
place. It's got a gym. It's got weights. I don't need one. I got one right over there.
Yeah.
They run around. Drew had his birthday party there, like when he was 7, and all the
Really.
players came, and
Hmm.
it was like, that's where he wanted his birthday party. I go, great. We
Yeah.
don't have to go to Chuck E. Cheese or whatever.
Yeah,
um,
my 4-year-old had his birthday in right towards the end of the season, and the entire team showed up. I didn't make it mandatory. I was like, "Hey, we gotta, practice is gonna be earlier today because I gotta go do this." Whatever. The whole team showed up. It was so much fun when that integration happens. It's
right.
so cool.
It's so cool. It's the
Yeah.
best. All right. So Robin, why don't you kind of introduce yourself and kind of go through your basketball journey, kind of how you got, if you played or whatever, where you kind of started, and kind of how you ended up where you are right now. Because I know you moved in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I didn't play, but the original idea when I went to school, my dad coached for 50 years in football. And he was the tight ends coach at Utah State when Bruce Schneider was there, who eventually went on to win a Rose Bowl.
Right.
There's a great staff there of guys that are like in the NFL, and so it's always, my dad will go, oh, I coached with him, or he held you when you were little and stuff. Um, and so I grew up thinking I was going to be a football coach. I was going to be like dad. I was going to do the thing. And I got to Western Oregon University to start my undergrad career, and there was a basketball coaching class that I wanted to take as an elective because I was like, well, I like basketball. I'll do it. We'll see. And through the work that I did in that class and the way that the program was funded, the head coach was teaching it and actually taught it. It wasn't, a
Right.
baloney class. And then asked me to join the staff because of how I was putting together scouting reports, and I had kind of that DNA.
That's a
Um,
great way to have a
and,
class. You need to have a class at your and have
yeah, I
them
don't
do
know if
your
anybody would take it, but yeah, that'd be great.
have them do your scouting reports for you.
He
That'd
he
be
had us
awesome.
go, yeah, he had us go to practice and like scout the team, right, from the practice, and then a game before, and we did the whole thing. I don't know if he used that one,
Right.
right, but I remember him, looking at it and going, do you want to do this? Like, do you actually want to do that? Right. And so it had never occurred to me
Right.
I was going to coach high school football and be a math teacher. Right.
Ooh,
And
really? Did you
Mhm.
really? I'm a math teacher. I teach
Yeah.
statistics. Yeah.
And so I that's what I was going to do. And
That's
I got
awesome.
this opportunity. And I just sort of said, you know, when he asked me, I said, well, I'm not just going to be a ball boy. I don't want to do that. Right.
Right.
I want to coach. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to coach. And he said, okay, I'll give you as much as you can handle, you know. And then I looked up and I was there for 5 years. I learned a ton. You know, like I never in my wildest dreams understood how much footwork actually mattered, right?
Right.
At least not at the level that I had known. I knew it was in football, but I didn't know anything about it from a basketball perspective. But so then, you know, I ended up, I got my degree while I was coaching with the men. I finished my degree. The head coach moved on. The women's coach hired me on because he'd seen me and knew I was, you know, a grinder, and I was going to start working on my master's degree. So I coached a year with the women while I was finishing my master's degree. Um, and then I moved up to Portland and didn't think I was going to coach. I didn't know what exactly I was going to do because he had moved on. And a buddy of mine called me up and asked me if I would coach with him late. And so I ended up you know, coaching 4 years at the high school level, and the last 2 of which I was the head coach of a boys high school team. And then my mentor got a head job on the women's side at a community college in Oregon, and asked me if I wanted to move the family down and join him. And he thought it was a long shot. And of course, I had to go ask my wife, who was new, and go, hey, do you want to do this? Like, high school coaching is different, right? I'm home every night. It's, you know, it's not,
Right.
there's no recruiting trips. We're not overnight. College is way different. And the reason that I married her is because I came home one night from a practice, and she was watching the Portland Trailblazers. Didn't know I walked in the door, and was yelling at the TV because Lillard had committed a stupid turnover. And I was
Right.
like, that's my wife.
Yeah.
That's going to be my wife. She gets it. I'm good. Let's go.
Let's go.
And so, you know, she signed off on it. And so we went down and we had some success there. And then the last 2 years, I was fortunate enough to, you know, to get the head job here at Yakima. So we moved up from Oregon to Washington.
So I got tons of questions. So first
Sure.
one is, how did this job come about? Was it a call? Did you apply?
I applied,
Okay.
and part of it was because, you know, my 6-year-old just started kindergarten,
Okay.
and education is really important to me, and my family has been in that for a long time, as I'm sure it is to you.
Yeah. I'm fifth generation. I think I might be the end though, the way the teachers are being treated right now. I don't think either one of my kids is gonna. I think I'm fifth generation teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, coaching is teaching. They're
It
synonymous.
It is. It is.
And I wanted to be a teacher, but then life happens, right?
Yeah. Yes. You got to pay the bills. Trust me.
Yeah.
You got to pay the bills.
Yeah. But so we we kind of were taking a hard look at the education system in both states, and we said, well, Washington is 3 hours away, and, you know, significantly higher ranked. And I had been gone to school in both as a youngster because we moved in Oregon and Washington. I said it's not comparable. Like, we should get our kids into the school system in Washington. And so we started looking at opportunities, and we had some success at Lynn Benton. I was the defensive coordinator. We were the top 3 defense in the NWAC. We had won 20 games, right? I've been doing this now for 14 years, I think, at that point.
Right.
And so it was just sort of a perfect opportunity to move up, right, for the family and to get it.
Do you see any correlation between your dad's coaching and your coaching? Like, is it
absolutely?
And what would that be?
Like, so he's very non-traditional. Like, he had a ton of success. He was the winningest coach at the time at Astoria High School, where he was, right? He'd been coaching for decades. And he had a bunch of success, but he was non-traditional in the sense that, you know, football coaches, I think, have a, you know, stereotypical reputation of being very derogatory, very aggressive, right? Very hands-on. It's a very violent sport. And so it sort of breeds that in a sense.
It does,
right?
Doesn't it? It's like,
but he wasn't that.
It's,
you know what
crazy.
I mean?
When you watch football, like I watch high school football, and we're in Wisconsin, we're not even in Texas or any of this place. If I did that in a in a gym, I
Oh,
would be unemployed.
done,
Like
done.
it is you know why too? They're separated. They're so far away from the stands too
Well,
that it's like,
what
man,
there was a head coach that got disciplined. I don't know if he was removed for this, but he was disciplined because he put his hands on a kid, like grabbed him by the shoulder pads and shook him when he was, which I would never do. But the network, my extended family was saying like, well, that's football. What's happened? This is just football. And I said that's not valid. First of all, like there's no excuse for being negative or derogatory or putting somebody down. It's like
no.
sport does not justify disrespect, right?
No,
And
I think
so,
that's a very valid thing. I want to come back to your dad, but I think that's a very valid thing in the sense that if I walk into my classroom tomorrow and my boss comes in and starts screaming at me, I'm not gonna.
right?
I yelled at my team once last year. Once.
Yeah.
The entire year, I yelled at them once, and it's because I thought the effort wasn't there, and it was after the game. It wasn't in front of anybody. I wasn't
Yes.
screaming or swearing. I mean, I
Hmm.
let them know I was disappointed. It was one of those. I came in the locker room. I told them, and then I left the locker room. And I came back. Then I left. And I came back. Then I left. And I came back. It was one of those. It was great
Sure.
banquet material because I wasn't
Sure.
swearing at. I was just mad because it's like you just
Yeah.
lost to a team you all know you shouldn't have. And then I think we won 13 of our next 14. But it doesn't, it just so doesn't make any sense anymore.
No.
It's not, the Bobby Knight world is over, people. That doesn't work. Like,
Well, and you could make an argument that it worked for Bobby Knight and he had the players for it, right? Like every coaching style has a team or group that needs a certain kind of communicator, right? And
yes,
so like I don't look at Bobby Knight and go, you can't do that, or
right,
I might not want to, and it might not be my thing, but if you have the right team for it and
right.
that's what they want,
And that's what they want. Yes, yes.
then you need to give that to them in a sense.
I think coaches, one places coaches drop is I take I get to know them now on in the summer and all that kind of stuff. There are
Mhm.
kids, like I got one kid playing for the Dallas Cowboys now, and he was on my last state tournament team. He wanted me to get in he
Mhm.
wanted, when he wasn't doing what he wanted that, and he fed
Mhm.
off of that. And it wasn't derogatory, but he almost needed me to get on, while the star player needed me to put my arm around him and
Yeah.
like, here's what you need. So I think people forget that everyone adjusts differently.
Mhm.
It's like, and yeah, yeah.
It's your responsibility as the coach to know that, right? Like
Yes, yes.
you can't teach everybody or coach everybody the same, and you need to know how to coach every individual. Even if like we could sit here and go, well, I can recruit my kids. It's like,
Right.
okay, well, I don't, however many recruiting calls you think we have, or the visit that they take or whatever, you don't really know what they're like under fire, right?
Right.
Until you're there, and you have to be cognizant enough of it as a coach to adjust, like, because one, it might change, and two, you might have been wrong with your initial assessment, and it's
Right.
still up to you to get the most out of them and to
Right.
help them
Right.
achieve.
Right. And this is where it goes back to the education part. This is where I tell our admin, and I tell our superintendent, and I tell our school board. I said the difference in a class size of 33 and 25, I can do 33 kids or
Hmm.
35 kids in my class. It's going to take a little longer to get the test graded. It's going to get a little, but the bigger issue is, I said, I don't get to know them.
Hmm.
Like I can't, like, I have a kid going to Stanford. I can treat Sanjay a little bit different than I can treat maybe, Joe, who's going to play
Hmm.
football. Like they're all a little different, and it takes
Hmm.
me longer to get to know them when that class size gets bigger. So it's
Yeah.
similar. Like we're lucky we're not only dealing with 12, 15 people usually on a team. It's a little bit easier to get to know those nuances. But going back to your dad, so you said your dad was like the Cowboys coach that used to wear the hat and stuff, or whatever, Landry maybe, nice and
he
calm. And
he was very he tells a story about when he interviewed that he went in with a three-piece suit and the AD hired him and said never wear it again, right? So Professor Coach is, I think, what they called him. Meanwhile, I'm out on the sideline in a vest. I won't wear the suit coat, but I'll wear the vest, and I still wear a tie. Sorry, it's the way I approach it. But I knew
yeah, I
really
know.
early, I knew really early that my dad was different, Like, and I, even young, I didn't really understand why or what, but I grew up with that. And so I saw him have a ton of success being positive and complimenting people. And not that you couldn't express yourself when you were frustrated or when you were disappointed or when something wasn't good enough, but there's a line and there's a balance between putting somebody down, right? Like that old "I need to tear them down to build them up" thing, to me, is
Right.
baloney.
Yeah,
Like
I agree.
they can know that you're frustrated and you're upset, and you can get upset, but that doesn't mean you can. Like, I even tell our girls, I'm going to treat you like an adult. I will swear around you. I will never swear at you,
Right.
ever.
Right.
Right. But I'm going to treat you like an adult because we're in college now.
Right.
And they start to learn that line. And when they do, it's the relationship and the cohesiveness of the group is just phenomenal. And I
Right.
learned that.
And it's reading too. It's like when I need to let them know is usually during practice. It's usually a walk by them and then into their ear. I don't need to embarrass them either. It's like, come
Oh,
on, like that's why I think some coach don't embarrass them. You can correct and not embarrass too.
mm-hmm.
And let them and do that correction. You'll love this, coach. We have old time bleachers still in our like wooden ones from like the 70s.
Sure.
And H1 is where I sit. It's labeled H1. That's the thing. And there's like probably a little dent because the nonverbal during the game when I whack that bleachers with the back of my heel,
Right.
I don't have to say anything. They literally know, oh shoot, coach is not happy.
And if you have that relationship with your kids,
right.
the
right.
fan doesn't know.
No.
Right. Like necessarily.
I'm mad at them. And I'm not, I've had to tell
right.
more than one official. I'm not mad at you. Like, like 97% of the time I'm screaming, it's because we're not on the help side, or we're not, we're not containing or getting, or hedging or ice, whatever. We're not doing whatever we're supposed to do. I got other things to worry about. I'll get on an official once in a while, but I got 77 other things I got to worry about other than you,
Yeah. I'm not winning or losing the game because of the official, right? I got other stuff to do. But our girls know me so well at this point that, like, if I stop, because I never sit. I'm notorious for never sitting during games. I never sit. And so, like, if I ever did sit down, they would all freak out. Be like,
now you don't sit to
what
start.
The heck is going on?
I always sit to start. It's kind of like that Bo Ryan thing. I always sit to start, and then as soon as the ball goes up, then I'm up. And then
I think we all have our quirks.
We do.
Right? Like, my right foot has to be on the baseline during the national anthem, right? Like, I just little stuff. But
I start moving at a specific time of the national anthem, like to go near the end. And I haven't talked about this in a podcast. I'm not sure why we do the national anthem at, like, I'm not sure why we do. I mean, I understand why we do it at the Olympics and big events, but I don't, we could do the pledge. We could do something like, it's almost anti, like it's. But
well, and at this point, if you do the Pledge of Allegiance, it's almost, it has like a cheap feel to it. It's like,
right.
What, you couldn't pop for the Bluetooth plug-in to run the national anthem.
Right.
We all have to do that, right? But to your point, I don't know. At this point, it's just tradition. Like, what is it about sport that means that we have to honor the country? I'm not against honoring the country. I just don't understand the connection. Right?
There isn't one. Like, when you're in the Olympics, I understand, or you're in the World Cup, or you're doing something.
You're wearing the flag.
You're wearing the flag. It's like, we don't play the national anthem before I go to a musical at the theater over here, or like, that's what I'm saying. Like, my daughter's in a musical. They're not playing the national anthem. It's like she's performing. It's like, I don't know. It's just, it's one of those weird things. You're right. It's just been around. It probably never leave either. Is there anything else about your dad? Anything way he ran practice? Anything else like that?
I mean, his turn of phrase was always, they need to learn on the fly. And he was really big on, and this was true in football and everything. He coached basketball and softball at one point too. And it's like, and I could see it and I knew it after the fact, right? Looking it back in hindsight, is that, like, he didn't stop and walk through anything for any real length of time, right? Like, it was sort of the first time a brand new thing was taught, that might be the slowest the practice ever got, right? And the kids needed to learn to get coaching and feedback in the transition between the drills, right? Like, if this rep is going and you're giving this person feedback, or maybe they're in mid rep and you're already giving them feedback, they have to learn to absorb that then, because I'm not going to stop all of practice to teach one person or two people how this works, right? And so because you're very hyper focused on the pace and the rhythm and the timing of practice, so that you're not practicing for an obscene amount of time and you're maximizing the time that you do have, right? And so I don't know that I learned, he didn't directly teach me that, but he said that, and I in reflection of what he did, and then having other coaches that I've coached with do the opposite, and it feel weird to me, I've kind of made that my own. But that was something I think really pushed me.
I think that I haven't heard many coaches actually talk about it in that way. I think what it also does, first of all, I tell like boys, I'd rather get you out in an hour 20 than an hour 45. Let's go. We all have stuff
Sure.
we'd rather do. And the second thing is, I think what I love that teaching method in the sense that in the heat of the battle, they have to make those adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Like I only have so many timeouts, guy. And we
Mm-hmm.
play halves. We don't play quarters in high school. So I even have less time to teach you. So I love that you're teaching them to read, to be able to adjust quickly on the fly. I
Mm-hmm.
love that.
And the new kids usually will really struggle initially, right? Because they're used to, when coach is talking, you stop, you turn, and you face coach. And so like and it's just a habit that I don't know where it was developed, but then you get the kids in the program. And so the first day they're in the middle of a pick and roll drill and you're talking to them in the middle, and they just like pick up the ball and turn and stare at you. You're like, what the hell are you doing? You got to keep going. There's people waiting. You're holding up the rep,
do that
right?
in your practice? You do that in your practice?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so how long do your practices go?
At the beginning of the year, we will never go longer than 2 hours, but we will go 2 hours at the beginning of the year. By the end of the year, because the college season is so long, we'll be at an hour and 15, an hour and 20.
And you lose kids to class, or how does that work at your
No,
school?
well, I'm pretty hands-on. I think there's, academic advisors are great, and they have a tough job because there's like 6 of them for 7,000 kids.
Right.
But in my experience, academic advisors struggle to really understand what an athlete needs and what their goals are. And so we try to complement the academic advisors by helping them with their schedule and talking about their degree plan. And that gives me the ability to go, okay, we're practicing, your class is from 9:30 to 12:30. And we're not going to schedule you, math 111 after that, because we got film at 1 o'clock, right? Like you got to be there. Right. So we don't run into any of that stuff. Now occasionally there will be, like when I was at the 4-year level, there'll be a senior that has a degree class that's only offered at a certain time.
Right. It's a singleton.
Right.
It's like, I got to take this, coach, or I can't graduate. Like,
like the capstone, or there's a lab or what. So occasionally that will happen, and we might move practice, frankly, around it. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of like, you got to get your degree.
Right.
So we're going to move practice, and I'm not going to punish the rest of the kids because you're not here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I know. It's yeah. That's what I always tell the kids. That's the biggest part it's the communication, and especially at your level, it's like they got to be able to do that. How do you practice plan? General question.
Down to the minute. And it's again, I think it's something that I did it when I was in high school, and it was super helpful. I haven't changed it, and maybe that's another thing I got from my dad too. Like he could tell you right now, 329 is tape and dress. Here's what we're going to do. He could go right off of the top of his head. But to me, it's really important to dedicate specific amount of time, and you teach the athletes that, right? That like this drill is 8 minutes long. We're not going 9. We're not going 7. We're going 8. And you have to get your reps in that 8 minutes, right? And you build that sort of sense of urgency where, like, if they feel like they didn't get it, right? Or they didn't quite get everything out of it that they wanted, it's tough. That's too bad. We got to move on. We got other stuff we have to cover.
I do that too. I just leave it. I say, we're coming back to it tomorrow. We're going to leave it.
Yeah.
Do you use the clock?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Have to.
Yeah.
I think. Because otherwise as much as I want to be scheduled, I want to get shit right too. Right. I gotta be like, okay, it went off. We got to go. Right.
I know. And the thing is, I will always I literally tell my coaches in our preseason meeting, I go, don't let me go over. because I'll go 2 more minutes.
Mhm.
I need 2 more minutes. I just need. Nope, we're done. We're moving on.
Yeah. The only
You know,
time we'll do that is if there's like an injury or
right, yes,
where
and we'll
something
circle back.
stops it.
And I
Yeah,
will circle back. I will sometimes leave a chunk at the end. You
sure.
know, it's like an exit slip as a teacher. Like, you know,
Mhm.
we didn't get this. Let's circle back to it. We do that anyway. We do something, and then over the next couple of days, we're reinforcing it over the next couple of days. But I'll
Sure.
circle back in the same day, especially if it's a hard concept for them.
Well, so we'll try to put it in. I don't know if you do this, but like, so I game plan, like this year it was the first 36 practices. So I knew what we were going to do every
Yeah, I
practice
can't
for
go that far.
36.
I've tried that. I usually get about 2 weeks, and it's like, oh crap. Then I gotta. This
Then
isn't
yeah.
working. I just can't. Even in teaching for 30 plus years, I can never get more than 2 weeks out because we, you know, like this year we were running this offense. It wasn't working. I'm not
Mhm.
gonna keep it. We got to shift. Like,
Sure.
all of a sudden, you know, there's just things that happen as you go down that stream,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh crud, we need more work on our help side. We just, like, our man defense was horrible. So it's like I only had this much when I'm building it in July or in August. It's like,
Right.
oh, we'll be good. It's like, well, we weren't. So I got to take. That's the only issue is I don't. But 36, that's a long.
Well, and to be fair, I don't think like I agree with you. If we've got, let's say on practice, you know, because I go in fours, right? So every fifth practice is an addition to a concept. So if it's a 5-minute drill, it's the same 5-minute drill, and you know they've established it, right? So we're
Right.
maintaining pace, tempo, all that
Yep.
stuff. But if they're not ready to move on to the next thing, we'll do it again. But it's still in it. That slot is still in practice. It's still the same amount of time. We just
Right.
won't step forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you
So
won't go in the
yeah,
progression, the
I'm not gonna.
scaffolding. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but it gives me an idea of it takes away from my perspective the urge to go, well, we need to go another 10 minutes in here because we got to
Right.
do, you know what I mean? Because I know it's
Yeah.
coming. I know we can address it. I don't feel personally that sense of urgency.
Right. Well, and like we're already starting this. So we just finalized our schedule for next year.
Mhm.
We're already saying, all right, okay, we got 2 days here before this opponent. We got 3
Mhm.
here. And then we'll map out, like, because we have, like, I think 13 practices before our first game. So we have to map out when can we get everything in. If you don't do, I don't know how people coach and don't. Part of it might be our math minds, but I don't know
Yeah.
how people do it and don't plan. I just don't. I mean, I wouldn't. I'd be 2 days before the game, and we don't have any out of bounds plays in if I didn't do that. Like, whoa, what are you talking about? Like,
I won't name names, but I've coached with people who, you know, we'd be 5 minutes before practice and I wouldn't know what the hell we were doing. I couldn't tell you what the first drill was. I didn't know. I was like, I can coach basketball. Coach, you tell me what I need to do, and I'll be, you know, and I'll grind it out, and we'll figure it out. But and it's a different style, right? Some people have that in them. I can't, man.
And I could do it. Trust me, I could do that. I just don't think I'm doing it. I mean, I've coached long. I could show up, and we would probably be okay. But it's like, and the thing is, I usually, like, I'll have this outline for 2-3 weeks, and then I will come home. Usually on the drive home, it's about a 10-minute drive home. It's like, oh crud. All right. So then I pull up when I get home after everyone's kind of in bed and go, all right, we need to work on. Well, like, so I'm shifting the next day. I don't. Some people do it the next morning. I like to do it right after while it's still fresh in my mind. And I tape practice, which is probably not the greatest thing in the world for me. But then I'll come home and watch parts of it. It's like, oh crud, that didn't well. Like, da, da, da. And then it flabbergasts them when I'll see them in the hallway the next day, and it's like, come here. And they'll go, what? I go, well, at 1 a.m., here's what I saw. And their eyes go about this big. They go, what do you mean? Right. I go, when you were sound asleep, you know, I was watching film. So let's talk about what you didn't do yesterday. And it's like, it's nice to have that eye in the sky so they know that they're
well, how much do you watch film with the team?
I do. So I try to treat us like a college team. I really do. And I've always done this. I used to do paper scouts and 2 VCRs and all that. So that has gotten, I tell you one thing, that has gotten like shorter and shorter over the years.
Sure.
Hey coach, super happy that you're enjoying the video. First of all, make sure you go over and subscribe and like. Next, go check ttroops.com for coaches who want to get better. Let's head back to the video.
We will watch. So at the day after a game, we watch that game and we watch maybe 5-10 minutes of clips. But I'm a big notebook guy. I come in, I have them write down things, then I cold call them and ask them like, Anthony, what did you think was one of the things we did well yesterday? And then so I'll cold call them if they don't know. Then we'll have a discussion, and then we'll talk about, we'll usually time 10 to 15 possessions from that game of pluses and minuses, good things and bad things. And then the next day or the day after, depending on when we have late practice, then we'll work on opponents. And the thing is, it's crazy how kids know. I don't know if it's like at this your level, but my kids know their kids better than I do in some respects. Like, it's crazy because they play with them all. Like, it's all AAU, it's all summer, it's all that kind of stuff. So they'll go, oh, that kid's out with a sprained ankle, or that kid likes 2 dribbles and a pull up, coach. And I go, yep, we'll get that in the scout. That's great. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, but we spend a lot of time. I do a lot of like it's a time for me to have them in my room, build some relationships. It's very conversational. It's like this. We're just talking.
Sure.
I do checkerboard them because they're teenage boys. So they, every other seat, every other row. Otherwise they're like poking each other and acting like teenage boys, but they're good. They're really good. They love my room because I have a food drawer in my room. So, it's crazy. It's an old filing cabinet, and it's got like apples and oranges and snacks and all this kind of stuff. And part of this is the teaching part of me. They can come in whenever they want, as long as they're not late for class. And all they have to do is say, hi, coach, get their food, and then they have to say thank you before they leave. That's all.
There you go.
I'm just trying to get touch points. Is all I'm trying to get touch points. And teenage boys like food.
I'm going to tell you right now, college girls are not that different.
Really?
We have right behind my laptop here is, I call it my continental breakfast. Okay. We've got peanut butter sandwiches, jelly, right, and chocolate milk. They're coming in all the time making sandwiches and getting something to drink, and it's great for them because who doesn't love peanut butter sandwiches, and you can make it however you want.
Yeah.
And I get to see them, right? And so then they're talking to me about, I got this on this math test, or
it's touch points.
It's just great. It's great stuff.
It is. And then you'll get the ones that are shy that won't want to say anything and blah, blah, blah. Oh, these granola bars are really good, coach. I go, okay, I'll go back. And it's literally like, it was one of the smartest things. I did it pre-COVID for 4 or 5 years, and then COVID hit. I had to stop. Then I started up again this year, and it was, oh my God, I love it. I just like seeing them. Part of the coaching is like, it's that relationship. So if you, what do you look for in a recruit? You're at a 2-year college, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big change. And I don't necessarily love it, frankly, between, coming from the 4-year level to doing it the 2-year level. And I treat this level like it's the 4-year because I don't want it to be culture shock for them.
Right.
I think we need to be, there's a lot of things, but I'm trying to think of like how to put it succinctly. The biggest thing for me, like if I'm calling you or if I'm reaching out to you, there's no question you can play. For whatever reason, the recruits will often think they're still being evaluated, like their basketball ability is still being evaluated. It's like, I'm not calling you if I don't know if you can play. I don't have time. I talk to 300 girls a year. And when I say that, people go, what? I'm like, yes, I recruit everybody and their grandmother that can actually play, right? So what I'm really looking for, coach, is I'm looking for people who don't get scared away. And what I mean by that is I really outline for them exactly what I'm doing and what the program is about and how we help you. And we're very specific. I don't get very vague or general with how we do things. And I know I've worked with coaches that have been concerned about, well, if we tell them how it really is, then we won't get anybody, right? Or we'll lose out on these kids, or we'll scare them, or however. And I jokingly tell them on the first call, I'm trying to scare you away. I want you to hear that that we're in the weight room 5 days a week, and that we have a trail run on Saturdays that's 4 miles long, and have you go, I don't want to do that. I want you to do that because then I can move on to the next girl who can play and that wants to do that
Right.
because she's got goals that she's trying to accomplish.
Right.
Right. So I'm trying to differentiate the, you know, the people who communicate that they want to play at the Division II or the Division I level, but they want it like they want to win the lottery. Right. It's like, yeah, it'd be great if I won the lottery, but I'm not going to lose sleep that I didn't win it. Right. It's like, I want the athletes who are coming here because if they don't make it, it will hurt them on some level. Right.
Right.
And that they want to know why coming here is different. Right. Like,
Right.
I don't say to the girls in the call with them, hey, if you come here, I'm going to make you better. Because the answer is, well, you're going to get better if you were in a gym by yourself for 2 years, right?
Right.
You're already good enough and you want it. Why here and why specifically? And I try to address that with them, and with the idea that if I scare them away, they weren't going to make it anyway.
But
right?
so you have to have a. Here's the issue I would have as sitting in your seat.
Sure.
It's like, how do I'm someone's gonna, you must be in the high level right now, because someone's coming, like, at least unless it's different with girls, like there's guys that are still thinking they're gonna get calls. You know.
Oh, it's
like,
not any different.
okay.
It's not any different.
Because I can play D2, coach, or I can go go D3, or I can go I'll go to prep school, or like, when, at what point do you get commits? That's what because you're not getting, no one's committing to come to you in November, probably.
Yeah, they are.
They are.
And that's frankly, I like that that's the conception.
Okay. And it's
because
not true then.
Right. And I benefit from the lack of that. Right.
Okay.
Like there's a lot of reasons for it. Right. Is that, there'll be girls that don't want to wonder. Which is very different than the men's side, right?
Okay,
So a lot of
yes.
times the men are more likely to, at least anecdotally in my experience, are more likely to wait till June to decide where they're going to go. That's not universal, right?
Right.
Like there's athletes that I have offers out to right now who are still waiting to see if they get a phone call from the dream school, right? But I also have girls who have already signed because they understand if they were going to go Division I, they'd have already been recruited.
Well, they've already moved on from that class.
Yeah, right. But they don't always understand that,
Yeah,
the support system around them isn't necessarily telling them that.
Right.
And so what I find is that the girls that commit when they do are bought into how we do it and our day-to-day process. And they understand that I'm going to get better doing this, and he can show me how to do it that way.
Right.
Right. The way to be successful.
Is it a proximity thing? Is it a proximity thing that they're closer, that they're not going far away? Or are you having kids come long distances to do that?
Well, it's like I have my starting point guard last year was from Florida. I'm in Washington State. Right.
Wow.
And my favorite question I would get was like, well, why the hell did she come from Florida all the way to Washington State? And I said, it's not because we're the only place she can play, right? Like that's not it. There's places that were closer to her that wanted her. She came here because of how we do it.
Right.
And I was honest with her, and we had the connection that we built during the recruiting process. And so, I think, we had a young lady from France. We had a girl from Arizona. We've got, 2 recruits from Texas this year. We're not.
How do you do that with your budget?
No, there's ways.
Okay.
I don't get to fly to Texas to sit in a gym and watch a jamboree.
Yeah.
Right. But if you do it long enough, and there's film, and there you have connections, and you can, if you do your homework, right.
Right.
So like I'm gonna have a recruit on campus next week from Arkansas, right? And it's like, that's just when you can communicate what your program is in a way that isn't vague, I think that resonates, right? Because they're not just hearing, well, if you come here, I can get you better, right? Or if you come here, I can get you to the Division II level. It's like, well, what the hell does that mean?
Right.
Like how?
Yes.
How are you going to do that?
Right.
Don't just say it, right? And so we answer that, And I think that means something
You
to
have
the
a
people who
roadmap.
really want
You
it.
have the roadmap. You have the
Yeah.
roadmap. Here's the roadmap. You might not
Mhm.
want this roadmap, but here's the road. Here's the map we're following.
Yeah.
Yes, or the
And
outline or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
and we're not it's not the only way to do it. It's just how we do it. And
Right.
if you don't want to do it that way, cool. Go
Right.
play somewhere else.
Right.
Right? Like it's
Well,
fine.
you could start in Chicago. There's more than one way to get to Miami. Like
Yes.
more than one route.
Yes.
So one's not necessarily faster depending on traffic. So yeah, yeah. And to be honest with you, that makes you unique, because I tell all my guys, I said, whatever they're saying to you, they're probably saying that to 12 other people, and they're probably saying it differently. And it's like, yes, it's like, it's crazy. It's crazy land. Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
And I hope that it differentiates me. That's my hope, right? Is in recruiting, that it differentiates my communication from others. And then they go, oh, but he was really honest with me, and I know what he's saying, like, and then there's something there.
Right. No, I love that. I love that. What do you think the hardest thing to teach is?
Well, it's not the triangle offense.
The triangle offense. Let's talk about the triangle offense, and we'll come back to that. So why did you land on the triangle offense? You a Bulls fan?
I wasn't in the moment. I wasn't, and I regret it. I regret not being a bigger Michael Jordan fan. Right? Like, how did I not appreciate? And looking back on it, the LeBron James Michael Jordan debate is not a debate, fellas. It's just not. I don't understand it.
Oh, it's not a debate.
It's Michael,
it's not,
and it's over. Sorry.
Go see Air. It's unbelievably good. Go see it in the movie
can't
theater.
wait.
It's so good. It's so good. I don't remember last time I went to a movie in a movie theater. Maybe I went and saw Avatar, but it was so good. It was like, I looked up and it was like an hour and a half and it was over. Great actors like Affleck and Bateman and Damon. It's like really good. So good.
You know that Michael was transcendent when you see who they cast to play his mom, and you're like, oh, they nailed it.
They did nail it.
Like, would you, if they did a movie?
That was part of the deal, that she had to have that. And it was like, in my wife, she hasn't seen the movie, but she goes, like, I still have my college, like, I graduated high school in 85 when all this was starting. I wasn't going to buy Jordans. Like some of my friends did, but I wasn't. I had Converse, man. I had Converse All-Stars. I still got them upstairs. And it's like, I look at them and I go, oh crap, if I'd have bought original, oh my God, I could retire. Oh my God.
Right.
Because I still have my Converse, which aren't worth nearly as much as the Jordans would have been if I'd have kept them. But
man,
I know.
If only you would have bought Bitcoin, right?
I did buy Bitcoin. I did buy Bitcoin. It's going back up. It's down today. So no, let's go back to the triangle. So
sure.
Why? Is it the type of kid you recruit? Is it
no? So when I was coaching high school boys, I didn't love any of the motion offense that I had coached under, but I felt like we needed one, especially in Oregon, because you don't have a shot clock. And so I kind of started to enjoy blocker mover, and I was like, hey, we should do this. And so we did it for 2 years, and we really struggled with it. And what I realized is that our boys at our level did not have the requisite athleticism to give them access to the other side of the floor. So we would never see, right, the flare pass. We would never see the second side unless we, swung it through, which is not blocker mover at that point, right? You're doing something else. And so that kind of stuck with me. I was like, oh God, if I ever go back, I got to do something. I have to address it differently. One, we have to be more significant in the weight room. But anyway, so then we get to I go up and I'm starting to coach women at the junior college level, and I wasn't in charge of the offense. I was in charge of the defense. But as I'm building these defenses, I'm looking at the offenses that are being run, and there's a lot of 5-out dribble drive out here right on the West Coast. A little bit of flex, not a lot of ball screens. And what I found was, like, you can run 5-out, but you don't have access to all 5 players, right? Like for whatever reason, it's the level, say what you will, they just didn't. It was almost like you didn't have to guard all 5 based on their formation. And so I started thinking to myself, like, okay, well, what if you're in an environment where if in a 5-out, I can't access everybody, right? And the key is overly crowded, in my opinion, from an offensive perspective. How do I score, right? And I can't shoot just the lights out, right? Like I'm not rolling out with 40% 3-point shooters up and down my lineup, though there is one team and they went undefeated this year that did that, but I was not. We did not have that. And so it was like, well, so what do we do? And so I started going back and thinking, okay, well, before the whole Steph Curry 3-point shooting revolution happened, threes weren't being taken. Spacing wasn't this, fab thing. Let me go look at what teams were doing when there was no spacing, when spacing wasn't a thing. So I went and I looked at like the 80s Celtics and the Lakers, and I was looking at that, and I was like, that's, well, I can't do that. There's 3 people with a foot in the paint on offense, and the point guard is 2 feet inside the 3-point line. I can't do that. Like that's too far in the other direction, right? So then I went and said, well, what worked in the 90s? And of course, it was the Bulls. And then you start learning about the triangle offense. You're like, well, this offense won what, 11 NBA titles in 22 years, something like that. Like, well, so what the hell is this? Like, what's going on? And so I went in and I started to really study it and look at it. And some of the concepts of everybody's one pass away, right? By formation, you take people out of zone. Like there was stuff about it that I was like, there is some really cool stuff here.
Are you able to isolate? Were they able to isolate Michael in that? I don't remember.
No, and I told you I geek out on this stuff. So I went and I'm watching like these old finals games, right? And the commentators are talking about, well, Phil Jackson called this, or they isolated Michael here, or whatever. No, they didn't. It was just the option in triangle, and Michael hunted it out, and the team knew the offense so well, and they were so Jordan-centric, frankly,
Right.
that they knew, okay, Jordan's here. This is the action associated with the triangle that runs here, and we're going to hunt him because he, is the straw that stirs the drink.
Right.
And there's little one-off actions that they would run, like quick hitters or whatever. But it blew my mind. I watched like the 91 finals against it was 91, right, with Magic's last finals, and Jordan beat him. And I'm watching all these games and I'm like, Phil will go 6 games and call 3 sets. That's it. It was just the triangle. And it wasn't, I think there was that preconception my generation had that Michael ruined the game, right? That like it bred this ISO ball, one-on-one, hero, everything. And if you actually like look at what was being done, it was the option in the triangle. It wasn't clear everybody out and let Michael work. That's an Allen Iverson, Carmelo Anthony interpretation, a Kobe even to some degree before he got into the triangle interpretation of it. And it geeked out on it. And I thought, well, and look at the difference the evolution that it takes. They didn't have Shaq when they won the first 6, right? The best post player they had was Luke Longley.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
he
Cartwright,
was
fine.
Maybe Cartwright, was it Cartwright early, or might have been. Yeah.
And they were fine, but they weren't 30 a game, 28 average a game. Right. And so then you evolve the triangle and I was like, okay, well then what happens when you have a dominant post player? You have Kobe, which is the analogy to, or the similar to Jordan, but there's no Shaq. So what's Shaq? Because you don't have Pippen, right? So what's Shaq in the triangle? It was still the triangle.
Right.
It wasn't this dramatic shift. It was the triangle the whole time. And it fascinated me.
Do you need 3 bigs to run the triangle?
Lord, no. And if you do, you're running it wrong.
How many bigs do you need?
1. And you can do it without 1. All you could run the triangle. Like you could, there's teams that we play in our league with like their biggest player on the floor is 5'10". Right. Okay. And they're playing post on TV. She could be a post in the triangle. Every single person needs to be able to post up and understand the action, the speed cuts that are coming off of it. How do you run split action off of it?
Does everyone needs to be able to post is one of it?
No, not necessarily. Because
I got a 5'10" guard that's tiny. Could he run triangle?
Yes.
Would he be inside on the triangle ever?
You could post him up, but he would probably not look to score.
Right.
There's action off of it, right? So when the ball is in the post, stuff is happening, right? And so then you're like, okay, well, they're not looking to score. but the ball is at the rim. So like if you, for example, you watch the Clippers Sun series going on right now, and everybody's
Right.
backing off of Westbrook.
Right. Yeah.
If you post up Westbrook, even if he's 6 inches short, like if Kevin Durant's guarding him on the block and Durant's towering over him, Durant's not going to leave him on the block. So now you're forcing a defender to guard and not help. And now you have other action, right? So it's almost like you don't have to have a post-up game. You don't. You just have to understand the offense.
Right.
Now, I think it helps to have a post that can score because I'm a post coach by heart and I like that stuff, but it's not a requirement.
And what do you think's happened to the game that people moved away from the triangle?
That's a really good question, because as I was coming up, and I asked a lot of coaching friends that I have, right, who have been head coaches, like, and I'm new to Yakima doing the whole thing. And I was like, why don't more people do this? I don't understand. Like, what do I not know? Right. My assumption was I don't know something. What do I not know? Why aren't more people doing this? And I heard stuff like, it's too hard for the kids to learn. They don't understand, the coaches don't understand all the different options, or they can't teach it, and it was all like, there's not enough spacing. They're not getting enough 3-point shots, right? It all just sounded like, to me, like it was excuses. Because you watch, like, Jordan set the record for threes, and that got broke, obviously, but he set a record for 3.5 in a finals game running the triangle offense. So you can't run. Yes, you can shoot threes if you know where they are and your team knows where they are.
Okay.
Right. But like, we were a top 10 offense this year, and I loved it. Our girls got so good at it that it didn't matter. I geek out on this. It didn't matter what the other team was running.
Can I zone you and you can do it?
Yeah. It means nothing. If you zone me, throw to the open person. And we already know all the options off of it. So if you zone us, you're either going to match up and then you're in man anyway, or you're going to leave somebody wide open who's one pass away and is an
even
easy gift.
Even in a 1-3-1?
Yep. Especially in a 1-3-1, because you're running somebody into the corner on the inside cut. So you're either going to pull the bottom person out into the corner, right? Or they're going to be late. So you're going to get a corner 3, or you're going to get an easy dump in, right?
Right.
And so again, now you've got the dump in, the weak side dive, right? Somebody's coming back. It forces you to match up. Run whatever zone you want. We saw 2-1-2, 1-3-1, 1-2-2, 2-3 zone. Didn't matter. We're just like, hey, whatever they run, if you're not sure, just run yak. We called it yak. It was like, just run yak. And when in doubt, our girls would get right there.
Why do you call it yak? Because that's your mascot?
That was the base. Yeah, we're the yaks. So it was the base.
You're the yaks?
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting mascot.
Yeah.
We have cheesemakers in Wisconsin.
It looks kind of like a bull.
It does. It looks like a bull. It does. That's why.
That's not why I'm running the triangle, by the way. But it's just serendipity.
It is. I love that. I will put Coach's contact information down below, because there's going to be a lot of questions on this. Trust me.
Bring it on.
You'll get emails on this. Let's go back to my original question. What's the hardest thing to teach? Before we went off on a side note, that was my fault, but
no. Gosh.
I think you hit on it early. I think footwork's one of the hardest things to teach.
I see, and it's in my DNA now. And our girls, we're a big inside pivots.
I think good screening is hard to teach too. At my level.
Yeah, and it's a challenge. Yeah, it's a challenge. I think the hardest thing for me to teach at this level with our girls is their driving line and actually reading it.
Reading that, yeah.
Yeah, is like if somebody is near your line, do you elevate and finish? Right? Is somebody on it? Right? Am I actually being guarded, or is somebody just running with me?
Yeah,
right? Can I see the second level? So they get really, you'll run a pick and roll, and they'll get really, or even if you don't set the pick, and they're just attacking somebody off the bounce, they're so concerned with the defender right in front of them, they don't see the second level. So they're not reading their driving line at all, right? They just beat the closeout, and it's like, okay, well, if you don't see the second level, that's where the turnover happens, or the block shot, or the poor shot, because it ends up contested because you didn't even see them coming. And so we spend a ton of time doing it, and it's tough slog, man.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. You know, the one way I started teaching screening that helped is I made them stop at the screen for a second and pause.
Yes.
So shoulder to shoulder. And I was setting the screen and they would stay. And I made them for like a week. Every time you came off a screen, you had to stop. So it forced them to, because there's only so many reads when you're coming. Well, you're gonna pop, you're gonna curl, you're gonna. But
Sure.
it always was an interchange.
Did you make them? Did you do anything with terms of like forcing the on-ball defender to go over, or trying to force a coverage?
Yeah. So eventually we got to that point. But it was so hard because all they would do is they wouldn't wait. They're going too fast. They weren't waiting for the screen. The screen was trying to get there. It was like, oh, it's just, I don't know. Conceptually hard thing for teenage boys. At least I've noticed screening is hard. Screening is one of those things.
And I don't think pick and roll gets taught a lot, frankly, at the high school level, at least not to our girls. Like we would get our girls and they would.
Hey, Coach. So glad you found us. Couple things. First of all, go over and subscribe right now. Stop the video, middle video, stop it. Second thing is go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better, resources, one-on-one calls, community, everything you would want. Let's head back to the video.
They would have done it, obviously, and they know what it is. But to say that they were like taught it might have been an exaggeration.
Right. Well, have them watch Iowa. Talk about screen pick and rolls. Oh my God. Caitlin could, I mean, she's also a very good passer, but like you got to decide, are you going to stop one of the better players in the country, or are you going to deal with the slip or the pop or the, it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
It, to be honest, with better watch than the guys. All right. I have more questions, but maybe we'll have to do a second one after your recruiting window. I'm going to go through my rapid fire now.
Sure.
What is your favorite brand of basketball? The actual ball.
Wilson.
Okay. Why?
Because when I'm brand loyal and they make the best football.
Okay. There you go.
That's all. There you go.
One word to describe your ideal player.
Tough.
If you go to one sporting event, I'll pay for it. What would you go to?
Super Bowl.
Okay. Favorite pregame or postgame meal?
Post-game meal, surf and turf.
Ooh, wow. Okay. No pregame meal?
I don't know if I could eat. I don't know if I'd keep it down.
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't eat much. What does your game day look like? At home game day?
So we'll have an hour in the morning where we will do shoot scout. I don't like calling it shoot around because it's not free time. So we'll do about a half an hour of some shooting and footwork drills, right? That are pretty even keel. There's nothing too intense. The last 20 minutes, we're drilling end of game slob and blobs and walking through like defensive adjustments or sets that we need to cover. And I swear by that, by the way. I've seen in the last 2 years, our girls got to the point where I didn't even install plays. It was just on my note card for like, hey, we're going to do this. For this one, we're going to run this Iverson cut with this fake Iverson cut where we're going to rescreen
at the end of a game.
Yeah. And so our girls because I wanted to drill our girls going from board to floor, right, in a timeout for the end of a game. Because remember, we can advance the ball. In women's college basketball, we can advance the ball in the last minute. It's great.
Why is that not everywhere?
It's so awesome. But so
our girls you play quarters too. We play halves.
Which is ridiculous. Who the hell plays halves? Just saying.
College men.
Yeah, the weirdos. I'm just kidding.
I know.
But our girls loved it so much, they got down to the point where they could look at the card that I had that was for me. I wrote it for me, not for them. And I never named it for them. And they'd go, oh, we're running fake Iverson, and just walk out on the floor. Wow. And I never installed it. We just did it.
I'll send you. No one email me because I'm not giving it to you at this point. But I'll send you. I have a sheet. Like a football coach, you know how a football coach has that sheet? I spent COVID and did that for basketball as a stats teacher. And plus, minus, I even shaded according to green and red. It's perfect. And I look down and it's like, all right, we're up 7. with this amount of time, here's what we should be doing. And
Mhm.
we got them like ingrained to that. Like, when do you start fouling? When do you do it's yeah.
Mhm.
So if coaches, if you haven't thought about that, you should do that. It
It
will help.
shouldn't be a surprise to your kids how
No,
to do the thing you're telling them in the
ever,
timeout,
ever,
right?
ever, 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 ever. What's one thing you do to relax? Oh wait, did
Uh,
we finish your game? No, we did. We didn't finish your game day thing. Let's do that first. So you do that in the
oh,
morning, and then what?
well, if it's a home game, 2 hours before, we just goof off and we do what we call the red carpet. So like how the NBA guys and the WNBA girls come in like dressed all up and they walk into the team room and everything. So we film them all dressed
Oh,
up
that, I love
coming in
that. I love
and put
that.
it on Instagram. So they get a kick out of that. And they get their intro music. And then an hour before, we do our little super warm up where the posts will come out first and they'll do the post progression. Um, and then the guards will come out 10 minutes after that and the posts will go in. And so they'll switch and the guards will come out and do some ball handling, some passing stuff. And each time the other group is in going over the scout together. So if there's a captain or an assistant coach, depending on how big your staff is, right? We'll go over with the post. Remember, this is the scouting report, blah, blah, blah. With 30 minutes on the clock, we're back in for pregame. I talk for about 8 minutes, and it's usually the same kind of thing every time. We're really big on routine because we're trying to minimize their anxiety level, right? Like the whole idea of getting people amped up, I think, is kind of a misnomer. You can put them
Right.
over the edge, right?
Yeah.
So we try to calm them down by giving them the routine. Like the board looks the same with the exception of a few things, right? And so we go over that for 8 minutes, and then we hit the floor for 20. And I'm not a big in and out, in and out, in and out,
I'm
right?
not
Like
either.
when we're out on the
I
floor, we're out
hate
on the
that.
floor.
Like, we
Yeah.
never go back in. Once we're out, we're not going. What am I going to say to them with 7 minutes to go?
If
And
if I'm breaking news with 2 minutes left or 5 minutes left in the warm up, I did something wrong.
I know. I've never
Right? Like
understood
I feel
going
like I
back
did
in the
something
locker
wrong.
room. I've never understood that. We still laugh about it on the bench. They go, "What the hell? Where are they going? Like, what are you saying? Like, I want the extra 2 minutes shooting as a
Right.
player. As a player, I don't want to
Do
go
you
back in the
leave?
locker room.
Do you leave the floor on like senior night? Or you make your kids watch it? Like if you're the road team, do you watch the other team's senior
Well, it
night or do you
depends on
leave
when
the
they do
floor?
it, because sometimes they'll do it after intros.
Yeah.
We don't have a choice at the high school sometimes. So ideally, like, we do our seniors before we even come out, that because I don't want to do that to the
Okay.
other coach. I'm trying to
That's a
be
good idea.
yeah, it's like, so we do it and then we go back in and then it's a normal, because again, you are 100% right. I don't want, like, the game we play before we go to the state tournament should be the same as the first game of the season. I don't want any changes. I tell the boys,
Yeah.
I tell them, I've done this long enough. There is nothing that's going to happen I haven't thought about and planned for. And we're
My,
going to keep it exactly the same.
Mhm.
You sit here in this team. It was funny because in COVID, post COVID, we didn't have a season. So that 2021 season, we didn't play at all.
Mhm.
0. I had to retrain everybody. Like, this is where we sit on the road. This is
Mhm.
like, because they just don't know. Like, it's not
Sure.
taught them. It's that history. That's got to be harder in junior college because there's only
I don't
4.
I don't know about that. But so routine is really important to you, clearly.
Crazy important.
The coaches that I've worked under sort of had a revulsion to too much routine. Like the kids would get bored or they'd get burned out or whatever. And I have really loved, like, and this is the little wins that coaches get, right? Where it's like, I'm the assistant coach going, maybe we should have more routine. And then we don't, and whatever. And then when it's my turn, I can go, okay, this is how I want to do it. So we're going to do, I get to call the shots. And then at the end of the year in the exit interviews, when I'm asking the girls, what did you like about the year? And they all bring up, I really liked the routine. Right. I'm in my head going, yes.
You know what?
Okay, I nailed it.
Again, I'm married to a psychologist. Kids like rule. They'll bitch about
structure.
They like structure and they like rules.
Mm-hmm.
And like be on time, blah, blah. They like it. They'll complain about it. They will blah, blah, blah. But it's like a warm blanket to them. They know that when they show up, that this is what's going to happen. And then that's what happened with COVID. They lost some of that and they need that. Like, here, this is why you have a curfew. This is why you like those kind of things are good for kids. Trust me. All right, let's go to the one thing you do to relax.
Play games. I have to compete. I'm always competing.
Like a PS5 play games, or are you playing horse or any games?
Anything, any games. I have to compete. If it's cards, Xbox, on my phone, something. I'm always
Catan,
competing.
man, Catan. Love
Yeah.
Catan. Love Catan. Great board game. Do you have any superstitions?
No, I think I have traditions. Right foot's got to be on the sideline, facing the flag. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, like tradition. Like the girls always look at me funny. I was like, you can't wear a hat in the gym. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, it's an old school thing, but it was disrespectful back in the day to wear a hat indoors. So take it off. You never know. What if
Never know.
somebody who wanted to recruit you, that was really important to them and it means nothing to you, right?
Right.
I'm not trying to call you out, coach, because you're wearing a hat in your own house. Whatever, you can do whatever you want.
It's my house. Yeah.
Yeah, right. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But let's
because I
stuff
went
like
for
that.
a run. It's my hair's all messy. Yeah. All right. Describe your perfect player in 5 words or less.
Tough, resilient, motivated, goal oriented. That's hyphenated, so it's only 4.
Okay.
Academic.
Okay. Best basketball player you have seen in person.
Ooh, that I've seen in person.
Seen, not on TV.
Not coached. Seen.
Well, it could be coached, but that's for me. It wouldn't be. Giannis would probably be the best I've seen in person.
Seen in person, probably Dame Lillard.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Best basketball player of all time.
Jordan.
Okay.
All due respect to Bill Russell.
Yeah. Havlicek too. And people forget about Havlicek. Go look at Havlicek's things, his stats. And well, then there's Bill Russell. I mean, there's all sorts of them. Bob Cousy. There's, and Steph Curry's probably changed the game more than any human being ever.
More than Jordan.
He changed the game.
For sure.
At
all levels, right?
At every level. Like the third graders, first thing they do is pop those trees. High school shot clock, yes or no?
Yes, please God. I saw a state tournament game in the state of Oregon. The final score was 18-14.
Okay. So as a stats teacher, I'm telling you that's an observational study, and that's one out of many. How many high school games are played? Anyway, my only issue.
I coached in it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here getting beaten by teams that run a motion offense for 45 seconds. And I'm sitting here going, man, we've defended for 30. Defending for 45 is not, and they win because they're like, at 40, you're going to break down. I'm going to get a lay in, right? Dang it.
I know. The only issue I have with, I don't really care. I poke the tiger. I poke a little bit on social media because I don't really care. The only issue I have at the high school level is I think that it will make it feel more vanilla. It will make it more feel like collegiate men's basketball where no one presses anymore. Everyone kind of does the same thing. I just think everyone's going to do the same thing. They're going to 2-2-1 press. They're going to run more zone. It's just going to get very, I think.
So do you feel like at your level, maybe this is just true of Wisconsin or not, I don't know, but do you feel like the reason that you press is to turn the ball over because you don't have a shot clock?
I don't think we see as much pressing. I think there'll be more pressing. I think it will be like 2-2-1 to slow people down.
Oh, you think it'll be more?
It will be more. I think there'll be more. I think it will be like, depending on how long they make the clock. If they make it 40, it really won't matter.
Right.
But if they make it 30, it will matter a lot.
Oh, okay.
And another concern I have is the difference between, we probably had 4 Division I players in our league this year. The difference between our league and the team and the 2 schools that can barely get a team and have 50 kids in their school. That's the one I'm more worried about. What's going to happen in those? Maybe it will be quick shots. I don't know. It's coming. Yeah. It's coming. I know it's coming. But anyway, if there's one thing, and this isn't on my list, but if there's one thing about the game, what would you change?
Ooh.
I'll give you 2 because I would do 2 things.
About the game in general?
The game. Like if you could change a rule, you're Mr. Basketball. You can do whatever you want. You can change it. Obviously, I would like to get the ball at half court too. That would be not in my 2, but you can time out and take and advance it. But
wow. Well, one, I think the game should be universal. I don't think we
Yes.
should. I don't think we should have college does it this way, high school does it this way, pros do it this way.
Boys do it one way, girls do it another way. It's
Yes,
crazy.
like it's no. Basketball is basketball.
Right.
That's it. We should
Pick
just
one.
play basketball,
Yes.
whatever
Yes.
it is.
Yes.
Right. Because I like some people love the 4 quarters and hate the 2 halves, and I was like, but I started in 2 halves. Like, and you got really used to the media timeouts, and it was fine. It wasn't a big
there's no
deal.
media time. The only good thing about halves in high school is I have to play more kids, which is a good thing because high school should be more about you want to win, but you should. I can't play my best player 36 minutes. Like I gotta rest him
because it's
like,
too chunked.
It's two 18-minute halves. I can't. It's like a college game. I tell my guys, I said, no one plays 40 minutes in college. They play 35, 34.
Yeah.
So I said, you're not playing this entire. You can't play hard and all the time. I have to rest you. So
do you do the thing with your team where you make them write out how many minutes every putty on the team should do, and then make them total the minutes, and then realize that there's not that many minutes on the game?
I did that this year.
I love that. They're always like, wait, what? And they're trying to do math again all of a sudden, right? It's awesome.
But would you change anything? I can give you, if you can't think of any, I can give you 2.
No, see, the 2 things that really bother, I don't mind anything about like the rules or, the block charge thing, whatever. I want the game to be the same.
Okay.
Right. And I want, like, I'm on the other side of the argument when it comes to should zone be allowed in club basketball, because to me, zone is just part of the game.
It shouldn't be. My theory is it shouldn't be in elementary. But like, because they're not strong enough to get the ball up there. So you basically are not letting them play anymore. I mean, a 3rd grader shooting on a 10-foot thing is like you and I, the geometry on it is like you and I shooting on a 17-foot one.
But I hear you. I agree. Right. So why not address the problem a different way? Right. Why not say
100%
or lower the baskets or play 4-on-4 or,
I agree.
You know what I mean? Teach the triangle offense like Kobe did to Gigi. Rest in peace. Right. Like I think there's other ways to do it. Like we should. Those are the 2 that come to mind. I don't know if I.
Here's the 2 I would do. I get rid of the jump ball. It's a stupid thing. Alternating possession. The first one they throw up at the beginning. Why are we doing that anymore? Visiting team should get the ball to start the game and then alternating possession. Okay. Because I have noticed the accountant who's working all day and comes and throws the ball up I mean, I got athletes out there. They do it. They don't practice it. it.
Well, and who does? Okay. Like, it's not like you and I are spending 20 minutes repping our tip.
I have spent last season. I bet I spent 4 minutes on it, probably total.
Mm-hmm.
So
offensive, defensive tip. We're done.
That's it. Right. So why am I let's get rid of it and say the universal rule is the visiting team gets the ball. So I wouldn't have a heartache. I will come up with a whole bunch of stuff to start the game when I'm the visiting. You'll come up with a bunch of stuff both ways to counter me. It would be it would make the chess match. It's a stupid archaic thing. Like you don't have the other half
baseline out or slob.
Side out of bounds. Yeah, slob.
Side out of bound at the half court. Okay, now we're getting fancy. Now you're talking my language.
But it just changed. The game changed. Like if I look at your court behind you, you don't have the other half of the semicircle because no one jumps the ball anymore at half in those 2 spots.
Oh no! Right? We don't at all. You don't. No, it's an arrow.
So why are we throwing it up at the beginning of a game? It's just stupid. It's stupid. No. That's the first thing. Second thing is for the boys' game, the court is not wide enough anymore. I would widen the court. I would actually make it bigger.
It happens to us too.
I know.
Right? Is that the girls will be stepping out of bounds and it's like they don't
wide
notice
enough anymore. Yeah. It's not wide enough. Yeah. It's 94 feet should be for high school. You guys should be 104 feet. Mm-hmm. We should be 94. Like I'm literally we played a team this year, 6'11", 6'7", 6'6", 6'4", 6'4". That's a high school team. And those bodies can't play on an 84-foot court. I mean, like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, you fall down and you're on the other side of half court, right? Like,
so it's just the court we have not kept pace with at some point something like there's going to have to be a law like every new high school be 94 feet or something.
Yeah, but if there's struggle over adopting a shot clock.
Oh yeah, it's never going to happen.
Making the gym bigger is
That's
not
my
gonna happen.
that's my utopian world.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's my all right. Favorite quote or saying?
Hoping and wishing ain't a plan. Or high tide raises all ships.
Ooh, I like that one. Best coach of all time.
Oh, Red
I know.
Auerbach.
It's always the hardest question. What'd you say? Auerbach?
Yeah, it has to.
Okay. One book you'd recommend.
What did I put down? The four kinds of salespeople by Chuck Mackey.
Ooh, I don't think I'm a reader too. What is that called?
The 4 kinds of salespeople.
And what is that? What does that talk about?
Well, so I knew Chuck right before he passed. I met him like 9 months before he passed away, and he was teaching our company. He was brought in as a consultant, and he had this book, and we read this book, and we were a sales company. And my favorite thing about the book, and the reason why I think it applies to like coaches, one, because coaches are managers of business, frankly. And every time coaches retire and go into business, they're like, oh, this is great. I can nail it. And it's like, yeah, because it's the same thing. But the book, in it, he goes through 4 different kinds of salespeople. And my favorite part is he doesn't tell you how well they do. He just kind of outlines like a couple of days in their life and how they approach things.
Is there a better one?
That's the part of that's the brilliance, is like, so when he's talking about the book, when he's doing it, when he was doing it in person, he would try to have a discussion with it, and people would start saying, well, this, because he names them. So they go through it. The book is really accessible because every person, it's like a first person almost through it.
Right.
I don't remember if it's first or third, but you go through it following one of the 4 for a period of time. And so when you're done reading the book and you would have a discussion about it, people will be like, well, this person was clearly the top salesperson, or this person was clearly outperformed everybody else. And he's like, well, we never said who. And the point was that there's a bunch of different ways to do things, and you can't assume how it's being done, right? And you can start to see habits of these people. It blew my mind when I read it. It's like, I know many examples of all 4 of these people, and he nailed it.
Right.
And that are basketball players, by the way, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're selling, widgets, or you're trying to get better at basketball, the tools for success are the same. And so like the habits of the people in the book are attributable, right? So if you can identify those things as a coach, because the point is, one, to do it for yourself, to know who you are and understand your own context, but 2, to understand that these people exist, and how do you manage them, or in our case, coach them. Right?
I love that.
And so it's
all right.
I know the guy, so I knew him, so I have to.
I'm gonna read that. All right. So this is the last question I always ask in the podcast. This was great. I really appreciate being on. What is one thing you would tell your younger self?
Network better.
And dive into that. What did you mean by that?
I grew up in a coach's household, and if I wanted to spend time with my dad, I had to sit next to him and write X's and O's while he was X's and O'ing, right? Saturday morning, he's writing out this stuff. And so I fell in love with the strategy and the tactics of the game, right? And I did not recognize when I was younger how important it was when you're on the recruiting trail, when you're at coaching clinics, when you're, just carrying the brand, right? To really make sure that you get to know the other coaches, right? Because yes, we are competitive, but this is also a brotherhood or a sisterhood.
We're all going through the same stuff.
Yeah,
I know. It was like the coach I was talking to yesterday. It's like life is about networking, like getting into college or getting your first job or getting it's all, or finding your spouse, all of it is. All right. Thank you, Coach. I've kept you too long. I thank you very much. I really appreciate being on. This was great.
Thanks for having me, Coach. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching, Coach. Make sure you go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified every time we come back on. But you will not be disappointed with teachhoops.com. 14-day free trial. Let's go check it out. Have a great day.